Hello everyone, I'm Isabella, and today we'll be talking about rests. A rest is a period of silence in a piece of music. That basically means that you do not play during the duration of the rest. Rests and notes have different symbols, but the naming is quite similar. Whole rest, half rest, quarter rest, eighth rest, 16th rest, and so on. In addition, the length of the rests is the same as its corresponding note. For example, if we have a quarter rest and a quarter note, both of these will have the same length. Remember how the tails of a note determine how long the note is? This works the same way for rests. Each tail added to the rest has the value of the rest. We start with an eighth rest, with one tail. Now let's take a look at this rest. We see two tails here, and if we take the eighth rest and add one more tail, then we have the value of the eighth rest to get a 16th rest. Now let's take a look at another example. Here, we see four tails. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we just learned that two tails make a 16th rest. If we add another tail to that, we further halve the 16th rest to a 32nd rest. And if we add the fourth and final tail, we further halve it into a 64th rest. Just like with notes, we don't normally see rests that are smaller than a 64th rest. And that's because if we go even shorter than a 64th rest, it gets really hard to count. Sometimes, we also see a dot attached to a rest. If you recall the rule for dotted notes, you will have no problem counting dotted rests. A dot attached to a rest will add half the value of the rest to itself. While this sounds complicated, it is quite easy to understand. Let's take a look at an example. For a dotted quarter rest, we add half the value of the quarter rest to itself. So we start with the quarter rest, we add half of the quarter rest, which happens to be an eighth rest, and we add them together to get a dotted quarter rest. And if we talk in terms of beats, we have 1, we have 1/2. So in total, a dotted quarter rest will have 1 1/2 beats. Let's take a look at another example. Here we have a dotted eighth rest. Using the same rule, we'll start with an eighth rest, we'll add half the value of an eighth rest, which happens to be a 16th rest, and we'll get a dotted eighth rest. And if we look at this in terms of beats again, we get 1/2 plus 1/4. And together, we get 3/4 of a beat for a dotted eighth rest. If you would like a more in-depth explanation of dots, feel free to visit our previous video on note lengths. Music is divided into measures. We can think of a measure as a container that holds beats. It is a section of music that contains a specific number of beats. Measures can also be called bars. If we look over here, this red boxed area is called a measure. In music, measures and bars are separated by vertical lines called bar lines. Here's an example of two measures in a piece. And this is the bar line over here that is separating the first measure from the second measure. Sometimes we encounter rests that are more than one bar, and when this happens, we can notate it using a multi-measure rest. It looks like this. We have a beam as well as a number. The number on top represents the number of bars of rest the composer is notating. So in this example, the player must count 7 full bars of rest. The number of beats to count will vary depending on the time signature, which we will go over in our next video. We often see multi-measure rests in ensemble works such as trios, quartets, bands, and orchestra, but they may also present themselves in solo works. That's it for today's lesson on rests. Thanks for watching. We will be posting new music theory videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so be sure to stay tuned. As always, feel free to subscribe, like, and share the video with friends if you found it helpful. See you next time on Music Theory for Beginners.